I never imagined it would happen, but I crossed a line that should never be crossed. I cheated on my husband, with his father. Yes, my father-in-law. And what makes it even more impossible to admit is this: he was stronger, more masculine, more energetic than the man I had married. And once it started, I couldn't stop. I know how it sounds: shocking, wrong, unforgivable. But the truth is, when temptation stood in front of me, I couldn't say no. And the moment it happened, my life and my marriage changed forever. Before I take you into this story, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't forget what you're about to hear, because sometimes the person who destroys everything you thought you knew is the one you least expect. When I first married my husband, everything felt like a dream. We were fresh out of college, young and full of plans for the future. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and at that age that felt like enough. Since we were just starting out, the plan was simple: stay with his father for a while, save enough money, and then find our own place. It sounded easy, temporary, like just another step in our journey together. My husband had just landed his first job, and I was so proud of him, but it meant long hours, low pay, and constant stress. Most days he came home drained, too tired to talk about dreams, too tired to be the man I thought I'd married. I told myself it was just a phase, that things would get better once we settled into our own home. But while he worked late and struggled to keep up with the demands of his new career, I found myself spending more and more time in the house, with my father-in-law. He was nothing like his son. He wasn't soft, hesitant, or uncertain about life. He was confident, steady, and powerful. Even after a full day, he never seemed tired. His energy filled the house in a way my husband's never could. At first I brushed off the thoughts, telling myself I was just noticing the differences between generations. But deep down, I already felt it, the beginning of a pull I couldn't explain, a pull that, if I wasn't careful, would drag me into something I could never undo. It started so subtly that I almost didn't notice. At first it was just the conversations. My father-in-law would sit with me at the dining table after dinner, asking me about my day, about my dreams, about my thoughts on life. He listened in a way my husband didn't anymore. My husband came home late, exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open. But his father had energy to spare, like nothing could wear him down. I told myself it was harmless. After all, he was family. But each time we talked, I felt a shift. He carried himself with a kind of confidence, a kind of presence, that made me feel small, and yet strangely secure. When he spoke, there was no hesitation, no doubt, just strength. And the more time I spent with him, the more I noticed the contrast. I would catch myself waiting for those moments, when my husband was away at work, and it was just the two of us in the house. He would ask me to help with things around the home, chores my husband never bothered with. Carrying boxes, fixing something in the yard. And as I watched him, strong and tireless, I couldn't help but compare him to the man I married, slumped, over, drained, beaten down by his first job. It was a cruel thought, but it was real. His father was everything my husband wasn't. Stronger, sharper, more masculine, more alive. One afternoon, he asked me to join him outside while he worked. I told myself I was just being polite, but standing there, watching the sweat glisten on his skin as he worked tirelessly without slowing down, something inside me stirred, something I didn't want to admit. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself why my heart raced every time his father spoke to me, why I felt a heat inside me when he was near. And the scariest part was, I already knew the answer. I just didn't want to say it out loud. The turning point came on a weekend when my husband had to work late shifts. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. I tried to distract myself, but the silence felt heavy, like it was waiting for something to happen. That evening, my father-in-law called me into the living room. He'd been working all day, and yet he looked as energetic as if the day had just begun. His eyes held mine with a steady intensity as he asked me to sit with him. It should have been nothing, just conversation. But my chest tightened, and I felt that now familiar rush I couldn't control. We talked for what felt like hours. About life, about responsibility, about strength. His words carried a weight that drew me in, but it was more than just his words. It was his presence, the way he filled the room, the way he seemed unshakable, untouchable, like no one could match his energy. And then, it happened. Not with planning, not with hesitation, but with an inevitability that left me breathless. One moment I was listening, the next I was lost, caught in something I knew was forbidden, something I should have run from, but instead, I surrendered to it. I told myself it would be once, a mistake, a slip in judgment. But it didn't end there, because once I experienced the raw intensity of him, the strength, the masculinity, the energy that seemed endless, I couldn't forget it. I couldn't go back. Each time my husband left for work, the pull grew stronger, and each time I told myself I'd resist. But I never did. His father wasn't just stronger in life, he was stronger in ways my husband could never match. And though guilt burned inside me, desire always won. I knew I was crossing a line that could destroy everything, but once the door had been opened, there was no closing it again. The more it happened, the harder it became to pretend nothing had changed. Days with my husband felt empty, mechanical, while nights with his father burned in my memory, impossible to forget. The contrast tore me apart. My husband, sweet, gentle, exhausted, was everything safe and familiar. But his father was dangerous, intoxicating, alive in ways that left me breathless. Each time I told myself, this is the last time. But when he looked at me with that unshakable confidence, when his voice cut through my thoughts, I gave in all over again. It wasn't just desire, it was power. His strength overwhelmed me, his energy seemed endless, like no one could match him. And when I compared it to my husband's fatigue, his constant struggle just to keep up with life, I hated myself for the thoughts that crept in. Thoughts I should never have entertained. The most intense night came when my husband left for a work trip. The house was ours. No shadows of caution, no chance of being caught. For the first time, I let myself fully surrender. Every fear, every barrier, every ounce of guilt, gone in an instant. I knew I was committing the ultimate betrayal. And yet, I couldn't stop. When it was over, I sat in silence, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. The reality of what I had done crashed down on me. I wasn't just cheating. I was destroying the man I once promised to love, and with the one person he trusted most. I knew there was no turning back, because even if I stopped, even if I never touched him again, the memory of what we shared would haunt me. It had already changed me. Forever. And the most terrifying thought was this: I wasn't sure I wanted to stop. When my husband came back from his trip, I looked at him differently. He smiled at me, tired but grateful, completely unaware of the storm I was carrying inside. He spoke about his struggles at work, about how he was doing everything for us, for our future. And I nodded, pretending to listen, all the while hiding the truth that would break him. Every time he touched my hand, I thought of the hands that had held me days before. Every time he leaned into me, I remembered the strength, the energy, the raw intensity of his father, and I hated myself for the comparisons. But they wouldn't stop. I told myself I had to end it, that I couldn't go on like this, living a double life, lying to the man I once promised my forever to. But then, my father-in-law would catch me alone. His presence would fill the space, his voice would wrap around me, and all my promises to resist would shatter instantly. That's when I realized, this wasn't just an affair. This was an addiction, a pull stronger than reason, stronger than guilt, stronger than love. And even though I knew it could destroy everything, my marriage, my future, my very sense of self, I couldn't let go. Now, I live with two truths. By day, I'm the loyal wife, standing beside my husband as he builds his career. By night, or whenever the house falls silent, I'm the woman who surrenders to a man she should never want. And every time I tell myself it has to stop, one question burns inside me: if I had the strength to walk away, would I even want to? What would you have done in my place? Could you resist the temptation of a man so much stronger, more masculine, more alive than the one you married? Or would you fall, just like I did? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. Because sometimes, the darkest secrets are the hardest to let go.